call the meeting to order. We're here to consider the approval of an agreement, licensing agreement between West Vincent Farmers Market Association and West Vincent Township concerning the use of part of the township property for a farmers market. Can we proceed to motion? Is that our intent? Claire?
Yeah, so I don't see why not. Are there any parts of the agreement, Alan, that we need to discuss before the motion?
Well, I think the board has in front of it the form of agreement, so if there are any items to be discussed, that would be up to the board.
I don't have anything in particular. I've read it.
I've been over it. It looks like as if the township is well protected. I would move that we adopt this.
I second.
Okay, any comment? Yes, Howard Stone.
I would be delighted to have a farmer's market close to home. I'm looking forward to it.
Carl Rackles, had your hand
What's
up?
the, how much of this is going to be farm derived? And how much of it's food? How much of it's non-food?
Sam Cantrell's here. Sam, would you like to help us out?
Sure. The agreement says that measured by area of display space, basically size of your tents, canopies, the non-food items should not exceed 1/3 of the total market.
I think it says
30%.
30%, okay, right.
This is in the permitted use portion of the license agreement, which is section 1F. Licensee should use the space solely for the purpose of a so-called farmer's market for the sale of locally grown or produced agricultural products, including fruits and vegetables and food items such as baked goods, as well as locally produced or manufactured non-food items to the extent that the aggregate volume measured by display area does not exceed 30% of the aggregate volume measured by display area of the total market products being offered for sale and for no other purpose, permitted use.
And this is determined by, enforced by, therefore, I mean, what's there for? Is this a farm market? Is this a craft show?
Well, according to what I just read, Carl, there'll be some locally grown or produced agricultural products. There'll be such food items as baked goods, and there would be non-food items, which would be things that would be brought to the farmer's market by artisans, as I understand it.
So it's craft show, food market, farm stand market, farm market, all of those things.
I would say it's a combination called.
So
It is not required to be a quote-unquote craft show. It is allowed to be. I think the goal of the township, and I'm guessing the goal of the manager of the market, is to have as much many food producers as possible. But to make it sustainable, you probably have to have an allowance for other types of displays. Is that correct?
Yes.
it doesn't sit well with me, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, Francis Ellis.
I'd like to ask about the parking for commercial use on township property that was donated to the township, and for the purpose it was deeded. The purpose that it was deeded is not to have commercial people park on it. I was under the understanding that it was for our own people, for the children who play ball there. And can you clear that up for me, please?
Jim, Alan?
You want me to address it? The easy answer to that is, this is not being done on land that was donated to the township. This is being done on a separate 2.4 acre parcel that was separately purchased by the township. It was purchased for, I think it was $65,000, and there's no restrictions on the use of that parcel. If you're talking about the donation by the Evans family of the larger piece, there are in fact restrictions on the use of the larger piece as a park, but there are no such restrictions on this separate parcel. In fact, right here, there are 3 separate parcels that adjoin each other, and you're sitting on one here, and then there's another one that is the majority of the park, and then there is a separate one, a 2.4 acre parcel that's the one we're talking about here, which abuts Route 401 and church property.
Okay, so it won't affect the children who play ball there on Wednesday when the farmer's market's open?
No.
On one of the previous meetings, I asked Mr. Miller about hand washing facilities, and I was told that it wasn't necessary because everything was going to be like a vegetable type category. I understand that meat and eggs are also going to be sold there, so how are the accommodations made to handle that?
Well, the Chester County Health Department is going to be inspecting the market, and one of their requirements for people selling products like that is hand washing stations.
Okay, all right, because I looked, I cross-referenced some health codes, and it came up that it was very, very important because the amount of germs that are handled, with dirty hands is a real problem at farmers markets. Also, the last question I'm going to ask is, where will the farmers market be accessed? Is it going to be accessed from 401? Is that how people come in?
Customers can come from 401 or the township parking lot or Melbourne Road entrance.
Okay. There's the distance between the upper church and the lower church on Route 401 is really a dangerous stretch of road. Because I use this road a lot, and I know a lot of people who are coming from Route 100, where it's 45 miles an hour, and they don't see the 35-mile-an-hour sign. They are going down that road at a darn good clip, and I just feel that it's just a dangerous road the way it is, but adding more traffic to it is even going to make it more dangerous.
The entrance for the park as it exists on Route 401 now is a PennDOT approved entrance, and that's the one that's going to be used. And that was designed and approved. The design was approved by PennDOT, considering the sight lines and the speed limit. And there hasn't been an incident there, a major incident, maybe a fender bender in the parking lot, but nothing, no accident, I don't think.
But was that approved before the farmer's market was put in, or was this previous one?
Yeah, it was also approved before the leagues used the fields too.
Okay.
There's a lot of, when there's a travel team game or a tournament game, there's a lot of traffic.
Well, I know
A lot
that.
of cars.
There's a lot of traffic on that road. Yes, I know. I'm aware of that.
Well, I meant going in and out of the park. A lot of traffic going in and out of the park. So, Brian Curry, I think, was next.
The Upper Euclid zoning ordinances states that for sale farm products on land like we're talking about, it says that all products displayed for sale shall be produced on the agricultural land contiguous to said building. That seems to be in conflict with what the agreement says, where you're going to have non-farm, non-agricultural products.
Well, today we got a letter from the manager of Upper Euclid Township informing us that we need a variance to do that, to have the farmer's market here. This is in spite of the fact that they sent us a permit for a farmer's market several weeks ago. April? Okay.
Is the permit that they gave you still in force?
They have not said that it's not in force, but we will make sure that we comply with Upper Euclid's requirements.
The agreement requires that all approvals are obtained before the farmer's market is in operation. This agreement does not override the need for approvals.
Okay.
Okay, I've got some other questions. This is the property that we're talking about is a triangular property that was purchased for approximately $45,000, correct?
I'm not sure of the price, but yeah, that is triangular. Yeah.
Okay, well, the deed reads differently in the description of the size of the property versus what's in the agreement. So there's an error there.
What is the difference, please?
It says 2.103 acres.
That's net of right-of-ways.
Okay, there you go.
So it actually is 2.4, but it's correct.
Well, the deed reads 2.103.
We got that, we got that.
Okay, this agreement appears to have no end at all. Does this mean that they could actually be there in December or January?
Yeah, it does.
There's also a provision for a 30-day termination that either side can give that would cause the end of the succeeding 30-day periods.
Well, that raises yet another issue with the Upper Euclid zoning ordinances, because it says that the sale of farm products shall be conducted from a portable stand dismounted at the end of the growing season under the following conditions, and then they give some distances. That's
Okay, did you not hear me, Brian, that Upper Euclid requested that we ask for a variance to have the farmer's market on that property, which,
Which means what you're reading doesn't matter?
No, actually, I spoke to Upper Euclid today, and they told me that the permit wasn't in force anymore. Now, maybe there's a difference there.
okay,
That's what I was told.
okay, they haven't told the township that yet.
Let's see, if this is for the benefit of the West Vincent Township residents, where have the applications for participation in this been publicly posted? You know, is it everyone that wants to attend and sell products there, or is someone picking and choosing? And
So you're asking the wrong people. Ask Sam, he's running it, we're not.
Fine, and I'll finish, and Sam can reply to me. If it's picking and choosing, what's the basis of it, and who decides?
The basis is to get a well-rounded market with the right mix of vendors and the right number of vendors, so that you don't have too many, say, produce vendors, so that nobody makes any money. It has to be sustainable for the vendors. But you want to have a wide variety of vendors so that people can come there and meet a lot of their shopping needs in one spot. We've taken on the job of recruiting vendors, starting with the vendors from the Anselmo Farmers and Artisans Market, and we're trying to bring in some new ones. We're open to application from anybody. And once the market is operational, decisions about new vendors will involve all the members of the association, which will be all the vendors.
This is, so in other words, the West Vincent Farmers Market Association is a group of people which haven't been assembled yet.
They haven't voted on officers yet. There's a bunch of vendors who know that the farmers market's happening, or hoping it's happening, and expect to be part of it. And it will be, the entity has been filed as a unincorporated association with the Pennsylvania Department of State
When was that filed?
today.
Okay. Is the fee that we're seeing of $1 per event, or for the entire license, for the entire duration, as long as it lasts?
For this year, this calendar year.
Okay. High-pressure gas lines, says there's 2 of them there.
Yeah.
I think there's 3, maybe 4, and after, as I came down here tonight, I believe it may be 5. There are at least 2 companies there, but there may be multiple lines per company. And if that's the case, it says they can't drive any stakes into the ground. Does that mean that the vendors all have to have freestanding pavilions?
Usually tents they bring.
Do these tents have stakes or not?
So,
Usually not. Usually they're held down by weights.
Okay.
Any more questions, Brian?
Yes. Sam, have you been made aware, and I apologize for not addressing this to you, this is going to be answered by him, I can tell. How are you being made aware of the terms and conditions of the pipeline right-of-way agreements and easements?
It's in the agreement between the township and the Markland Association that there can be no stakes in the ground in the pipeline right away.
But are you aware of any other conditions of the easements with the pipeline companies?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Is this supposed to be a nonprofit thing, or is this a for-profit for you, or, operation? Or the association splits it up, or what?
No, the association would expect to be a nonprofit organization. Its income is vendor fees from the participating vendors, and possibly grants from outside sources. It is a program of Macy's Farm Conservation Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, and could solicit donations in that way. And its expenses include paying market managers, paying for music or signs or any of the expenses involved in putting on the market.
Okay.
Hopefully, it's a for-profit venture for the vendors.
Okay. But in other words, any tax fines or anything like that is going to go under I apologize for not having the name down pipe, but the Macy's 501(c)(3) organization.
The entity is a self-standing entity in terms of the Department of State, the unincorporated association.
So if it has any tax liability or anything, it goes and files them separately?
Right.
Okay. This is a follow-up to, I think, to you guys. You mentioned it's not going to use the parking down there where the sports field is.
I never mentioned that.
Well then, okay.
I asked about it.
You asked about it. What was the answer again? Or what was the answer again then?
We can use all of the parking lots that the township owns.
It's going to be off of the parking lot. But are they going to be entering through the parking lot?
Who?
The vendors and the customers?
They're not being dropped down from the sky, so I believe, yes.
Yeah, they will be entering through the parking lot.
So in other words, the vendors and customers will be parking in this 2-point-odd acre lot?
No, the vendors will drive into the area where the market is to set up their tents.
Mm-hmm.
And the customers will park in the parking lots and walk to the area.
So in other words, the customers, to do their commercial activities, will be parking in the sports area parking lot?
Yeah.
All township parking lots are available to those customers.
And what commercial activities are the customers doing?
Hey, you gotta get there somehow. And the other thing is, you just said, the vendors, are the vendors gonna park their vehicles somewhere else?
I don't know, Sam, what's your intent?
No, normal procedure is that they park their vehicles right behind their canopies so they can resupply their displays and so on.
So in other words, the vendors' vehicles will be driving up onto that property?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what it said.
Okay. Was that land, when it was originally purchased, dedicated as West Vincent Township parkland?
No, it's not dedicated as anything.
Okay. Ken,
Yeah.
Are you going to be participating, or is your farm going to be participating in this farmer's market?
No.
Okay.
You could have asked me that 3 weeks ago and saved yourselves a lot of angst and chicken mans and emails, but that's not the way you guys work. Yeah, I know. Any more questions, Brian? Maria, I know that's some.
I think that's it for me.
Okay, Maria, then John, you next.
When you said you're applying for the variance,
No, I didn't say we were applying for the variance.
so the
I
township
said the
isn't
township will
involved in
make sure
doing
that the use conforms with Upper Euclid's requirements.
it? Okay, so,
This agreement that we're considering passing tonight or not passing tonight puts the onus of approvals by the municipalities involved on the Farmers Market Association.
okay, I also noticed the dollar number in the contract.
Yeah.
What about the cost the township has already incurred, attorney's fees, obviously drafting up the agreements, that kind of stuff, whatever site work was done, whatever else may come along, will the township get reimbursed for that? Because this is obviously a for-profit venture for
Up till
all these
now,
people, and it's not even West Vincent
Up till now,
people.
it's the cost of doing business in West Vincent Township. We don't figure we're going to be reimbursed for what's spent up till now. Not looking to be reimbursed, not expecting to be reimbursed. don't
And
want to be
would you do that
reimbursed.
for a pizza shop that wanted to come in?
It's not a pizza shop.
This is a better business than that?
This is a local foods operation for the most part, and the goal of the sustainability plan is to encourage that and provide that amenity to our residents.
Right, but is it sustainable if they have to have free rent?
Yeah.
It's no longer sustainable if they can't make it work, if they have to be given some place to do their business.
They are paying, the vendors are paying the association. We are not charging the association because the association is a nonprofit.
Not for profit or a non-profit?
Same thing.
Well, no, one is a charitable organization and one is, a C club is a not-for-profit. A group of vendors is a
Terms are
not-for-profit.
interchangeable, Maria.
Macy's is non-profit, but that's very different. If I write you a check, I get a tax deduction. If I write a check to the farmer's market, I don't get a tax deduction. They are very different. There's a whole lot of scrutiny involved in 501c3s.
Other questions, Maria?
No.
John Jacobs.
Yeah, I just have a few questions. First off, I also am in agreement. I think it's a great idea, however, for the farmer's market. But I don't think it should, I disagree with Claire and I guess the rest of the board. I don't think it should cost the taxpayers anything. Even though Sam's Group might be a nonprofit, the vendors that are there aren't doing it for the goodness of their heart. They're making money, and it's just my opinion that the taxpayer shouldn't foot that bill, and they should incur whatever cost should be passed on to them as form of rent, because it's still going to be awful cheap for them to do that. I'm just curious, why is it a license agreement, not a lease agreement?
Recommendation of the solicitor.
I'm sorry?
Recommendation of the solicitor that would township interest would be better protected by a licensing agreement.
Okay. Regarding I also had a question regarding the 30% of non-food items. It might be appropriate, I'm not sure, I'm not schooled in that area, but it just seems like it might be a little more like a flea market than a total farmer's market, and 30% just caught me unaware. But when Claire explained that, it needs to be profitable to sustain it, it makes sense, but it still sounds a little high at 30%. The license fee of $1, again, that goes in with my cost. I just think you're doing the taxpayers a disservice by not passing on the cost. And regarding my last question, there's a late fee mentioned, but it doesn't indicate when the $1 is late. Not that it matters.
Kurt Candace.
What a wonderful idea. I'd like to thank the township. You potentially are going to make my life a lot easier. Because now, instead of having a sore back and tired arms and hands and rinsing my hands with Clorox, do you think farmers market people wash their hands? I can go to Produce Junction early in the morning, and I can buy vegetables, and I can come over to the farmer's market, and I don't have to do all that work. Now, my point is enforcement. You are going to give somebody the task to distinguish a locally grown vegetable from a Produce Junction vegetable. It ain't going to happen.
Sam, does the agreement that your vendors sign
They
make
can,
them,
Kenny, they can sign anything they want. I'm not talking about agreements. I'm talking about what actually goes on in the real
okay, so
world.
would you sign an agreement saying that you were growing stuff that you brought to Produce Junction and sold at the market?
I didn't say I was going to do it. I said the potential is there for me to do it,
And I would-
subject
Kurt,
to enforcement.
Kurt, as well as I know you, you wouldn't do that because it's not an honest thing to do.
Of course I wouldn't, but that
Right,
doesn't mean
right.
that the people up on 23 and the people
I
on
don't know
Route
who the people up
100,
on 23 and 100 are.
but they're doing it all the time. That's what happens. If somebody runs, let's say somebody's growing a garden and they run short. They pick up stuff and they throw it out there because that's the business that they're in. Just saying, you're asking for an enforcement nightmare. And I'm not talking about Colorado cantaloupes. You get one batch of Colorado cantaloupes and you have sick people, and this room's gonna look a little bit different than it does right now. Enforcement is an extremely difficult thing that frankly, with all due respect, I don't think you've contemplated how serious the enforcement issues are. You were worried about hand washing. How about somebody showing up with the flu? What's to stop somebody and their children at the market showing up with the flu?
We're coming to a soccer game.
We're going to-
This is food. The
Yeah,
soccer
it's
game is a soccer game. This is food. You know my point. My point is the enforcement is an awful burden, just a terrible burden.
Okay.
It's not a big burden to other farmers markets.
How is enforcement done?
I'm sorry, so your answer is trust me?
What you described is not how a producers only market works. It's producers only and they understand that.
And we haven't even talked about plants and selling plants. Somebody could bring plants that are from far away and contain things we don't want to, and then they're bringing them into our township. And things on plants are airborne. Again, enforcement is a real pain.
But nobody would be bringing plants from far away.
Again, trust you.
Anything else, Kurt?
No?
Okay. Other questions or comments? Francis?
I'd like to address the hours. I didn't think that the farmer's market was open from 12 to 7. I thought it was open between 2 and 6.
Gives chance for setup and takedown, that's all, especially the first few weeks.
Yeah, and that's a very small amount for takedown.
Other questions or comments? Motion's been made and seconded, all those in favor? Aye. That's all for this meeting. Your motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?